The 1873 Colt single-action Army was the king of revolvers in the year of 1890. Remington, however, was not ready to concede to the popularity of the Colt single-action Army just yet, as Remington revolvers were very popular, but just not as prolific as the Colt. Prior to 1890, there was, among others, the Remington Beals Model 1858 revolver, both in its original percussion configuration and as a metallic cartridge conversion. Following the 1858 revolver was the Remington Model 1875 Improved Army, a pure cartridge revolver, chambered in .45 Colt, .44-40 Winchester, and .44 Remington, and which was manufactured from 1875 to 1889. The following year, 1890, the Remington revolver underwent a major design change to become the Remington Model 1890 New Model Army revolver, a means to level the playing field with Colt. Perhaps. The Remington Model 1890 New Army revolver was manufactured from 1890 to 1896, wherein it became the last single-action revolver manufactured by Remington under new ownership. Unit cost was only $10.70, and only around 2,000 were produced. In its original form, it is one of the most sought-after of Remington handguns. The Remington Model 1890 New Model Army revolver was primarily used by Indian tribal police. The Remington 1890 New Model Army revolver came about after the production of a few Model 1888 transition revolvers, called the New Model Pocket Army. Gone was the underbarrel sail and loading lever that was found in the 1858 and 1875 Remington revolvers. The underbarrel was streamlined, and a case ejection rod was added. The Uberti 1890 revolver is a faithful reproduction, but not an exact copy of the famous old Remington revolver, and is chambered for the modern .45 Colt smokeless powder cartridge. So, while it looks and feels like an Old West cowboy gun, it has metallurgy common to more modern revolvers. The original 1890 Remington was chambered in .44-40 Winchester only, with the left gripped on many marked 44 or 44W. In a dealer catalog, the barrel is listed at 5.5 inches, while the barrel length of the Uberti reproduction is at the stated 5.5 inches. Caliber is .45 Colt. The bluing is impeccable on this all-steel revolver. The hammer is a contrasting color-cased hardened unit with a high spur. The distinct grip panels are two-piece walnut grips, and a swiveling lanyard ring is mounted on the bottom of the grip frame, which is substantial and fits my hand well. The action is typical Remington, where timing is excellent and lockup is well indicated. Typical of Remington revolvers, the frame is substantial, much more so than the Colt single-action Army. Out of the box, the action is exceptionally smooth. Unlike Colt single-action Army revolvers, with their 4 clicks, C-O-L-T, there are only 3 hammer positions with the Remington, a safety notch, half cock, and full cock. But like the Colt single-action Army revolvers, the hammer must be fully cocked when the trigger is pulled, to prevent damage to the revolver. The Uberti reproduction of the 1890 Remington New Army just feels good in the hand. Personally, I have always felt that the Remington was built better than the Colt revolvers. To draw a comparison, the Remington revolvers were the Ruger revolvers of the day, whereas Colt revolvers, such as the 1873 single-action Army, could be considered the Glock of the period, with Smith & Wesson being, well, Smith & Wesson. I'll talk more about the action, handling, and sights later in the range session. Disassembling the Remington 1890 for cleaning is a simple affair. Obviously, the first step is to ensure that the revolver is unloaded. To do this, move the hammer to the rear to the half-cock position, the loading-unloading position, and open the loading gate. Then, slowly rotate the cylinder 1 complete revolution. Take care to ensure that each of the 6 chambers is empty. Then, and only then, should you begin cleaning your revolver. To remove the cylinder, depress the spring-loaded base pin screw, so that the cylinder base pin can be removed from the frame by pulling it out in the direction of the muzzle. Slide the cylinder base pin all the way out until it is free of the frame. Remove the cylinder toward the loading gate side of the revolver. While the cylinder can be removed easily, care must always be taken to avoid damage. As far as cleaning, I am going to refer you to the owner's manual, which can be downloaded from Uberti. To reinstall the cylinder, simply reverse the steps used during removal. When you reassemble the cylinder base pin, make sure that the base pin catch snaps back into place. You can test it to see if it is in the correct position by checking for free movement of the plunger. It should move free when depressed and return under its own spring pressure. Note that the cylinder in the revolver is hand-fitted to its frame with precision, so there is likely to be a close fit. While the cylinder can be removed and reinstalled easily, care must always be taken to avoid damage. Do not force the cylinder into the frame from any direction. Have patience, as it may take several tries before the cylinder is properly in place. Check for proper operation. Cycle the action through several rotations of the cylinder to ensure bind-free operation. Never force the cylinder using the hammer should the cylinder bind. At my favorite outdoor range, the temperature was on the chilly side at 42 degrees Fahrenheit, and there was a slight wind. Nothing to worry about with handguns at relatively close distances, though. It will be more my figuring out the POA for the 1890. Just the other day, I was shooting a Taurus Gaucho here at this range, and I had to hold extremely low on the target to get fairly good hits. I was soon to find out that the 1890 was good with a center hold on the target, but it took me a while to figure that out. All in a day's play. One thing about these reproductions of old single-action revolvers, I thoroughly enjoy the range time spent with them. The actions are smooth, grips feel nice in the hand, front sight is barely visible, and the tip of the sights must be buried in a very shallow notch on the frame to be accurate, and it is very satisfying when you can actually hit something with one, and highly frustrating when you don't. But I can say that about any firearm that I shoot. The physical act of load one, skip one, load four, close the door always helps me take my thoughts to the place between what was yesterday and what is today. The original 1890 was sighted in at the factory for 50 meters, or 54.7 yards. This day's maximum range will be 35 yards, with the two front swingers being at 15 yards. With 45 Colt 250 grain cowboy fodder, the Remington 1890 single-action revolver is going to be checked for proper functioning and relative accuracy. The full grip fits my hand very well, and the revolver is well balanced. The hammer is well within thumb's reach, and the hammer should be cocked with robustness. This was to ensure that the full cock notch was fully engaged. The trigger pull weight of these reproduction revolvers makes grown men cry for the same trigger on their 1911 pistols, and that includes me. After a crisp break from 3.5-pound trigger pull, the hammer falls. Recoil is felt in the hand. The rise of the muzzle places the hammer spur where the thumb can easily reach it, and if the shooting gods agree, a hole appears in the target where you want it. Sometimes a hole does not appear in the target where you want it, and you get to settle in and experiment with what is needed to rectify that. Now, if you were back in the Old West, that may be cause for concern, as you would be cleaning this revolver and then carrying it right afterward. That does put a little pressure on you to make the revolver perform as it should, as it may be called upon to take care of problem-related situations with an idle, self-indulgent, worthless, good-for-nothing polecat of a person who has been on your destruction. Most of these reproductions of Old West revolvers shoot high. As with the originals, they are actually regulated for a 50-yard zero. Sometimes it took some reduction in front sight height, sometimes not. Sometimes it took a bit of persuasion to move the front sight left or right, depending on the impact of the bullet. In most cases, the revolver was simply pointed and the trigger pulled. Every man worth his salt knew exactly where his revolver would shoot. There is low felt recoil with low velocity cowboy ammunition, and there is a modest flip of the muzzle. With a good firm grip, however, muzzle flip can be controlled. However, these revolvers were meant to roll in the hand, bringing the hammer within cocking distance of the thumb for fast cocking and return to the target. Remember that the original cartridge for this revolver was the 4440 Winchester. The initial standard load for the cartridge was 40 grains of black powder, propelling a 200-grain round-nosed flat-point bullet at approximately 1,245 feet per second. The Remington 1890 single-action revolver is very docile when firing cowboy loads and very pleasurable to shoot. Note that Uberti advises against using cartridges marked high speed or high velocity. While the front sight is very thin and hard to pick up with my old eyes, point and shoot characteristics of the Remington Model 1890 New Army revolver is outstanding, in my humble opinion. I have no complaints whatsoever, considering that the revolver is new. Obviously, many good and bad folk carried the 1890 Remington. Since the revolver was mainly used by tribal police, an open top, right side, butt forward, with sewn-in toe plug might be the holster to carry it. This holster, worn cross-draw or not, was probably one of the primary carry methods. If you are into Western holsters for an 1890 Remington revolver, America's Gun Store, LLC, out of Barnesville, Ohio, is a good place to shop. If you are looking for a period-correct holster, might want to check out the 1890 original holster from El Paso Saddlery Company. The firearm that some say was used to kill Chief Sitting Bull was the Remington Model 1890 New Model Army, a revolver that was used by tribal police at the time. However, that claim has been disputed, and it was most likely a Smith & Wesson No. 3 Russian model, which was manufactured from 1870 to 1915. The Smith & Wesson No. 3 Russian model revolver, claimed to be the one that dispatched Sitting Bull, was auctioned on December 10, 2022, accompanied with a holster rig, ammunition, factory letter, and documentation attributing it as the gun that killed legendary Native American Chief Sitting Bull. Its estimated price was between $25,000 and $50,000. I do not have information as to what it was actually sold for. While I wish I could say that the Remington 1890 New Army Reproduction by Uberti is a replica of the gun that killed Sitting Bull, it might be a falsehood. The only ones who really know is Bullhead and Red Tomahawk, tribal policemen that shot Sitting Bull, and they left no record of the weapons used. Of the Uberti Remington Reproduction revolvers, I have the 1858 Percussion in .44 caliber, the 1858 Conversion revolver in .45 Colt, and the 1875 Improved Army revolver, also in .45 Colt. All are excellent shooters and just feel really good in the hand. Whenever I handle and shoot one of these pieces, there is a wistful or excessively sentimental yearning for return to some past, irrecoverable period. But at the same time, modern conveniences make me thankful for living in the present. If you are interested in collecting replicas of early single-action revolvers, a Remington by Uberti should be on your list. These firearms impart the spirit of those early days when the United States was winning the West, and the Remington revolvers played a part in that endeavor. However, while much can be said of 1858 and 1875 Remington revolvers, there is not much to be said of the 1890 New Army revolver, because of its oblique position in history. That is what makes it interesting, at least to me. The Remington Model 1890 New Model Army revolver is one of the last of the bucket list of reproduction pre-Civil War, Civil War, and post-Civil War revolvers for my collection. The rarest of the search is the Patterson Colt, but the search continues, as the Patterson Colt remains the most elusive of them all. Well, let me close out this review of the Remington Model 1890 New Model Army revolver, and I am happy that you stuck with me. More gun and gear reviews are in the queue, and I hope that you will join me again when I publish them. In the meantime, stay vigilant, stay armed, and stay safe out there.